everyone, it's Lori McGuire with Remax McGuire team. Anyway, I just wanted to check in with you. I have not covered chapter 2 of the incredible book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it has been so busy. I cannot even get over how crazy it's been in real estate. I feel like it's springtime market all over again, even though we're in autumn. How many other realtors out there feel the same way I do across the country? So many. I'm still today 3 listing appointments. I think, well, we put a property in escrow today. We're negotiating, I think, on 2 or 3 other listings right now. So it's just an amazing time to be buying and selling, and the interest rates are so low. But let me get to this book before I get to my 4:30 p.m. Listing appointment, my 3rd one for the day. And I'm going to drive very carefully. I'm not in my self-driving car, my Tesla, so I have to be very cautious. I'm going to be very careful. But anyway, I'm so into Atomic Habits, this book. I've been listening to it, and just, the reason why it's taken me a few days to just talk to you about chapter 2 is because I really want to make sure I'm internalizing it before I share it with my team and with the Facebook community, because then I also, when I internalize it for myself, then I'm more prone to utilize it in my daily life, rather than going from one book to another book to another book. I'm sure you have done that before as well. I've always been really into books, and when I slow down and I just really get the meaning of them, sometimes I have to read a chapter over and over, or I cover a chapter in a meeting with my team. That really helps. I even do book reports, and I put them in my iPhone. So in chapter 2, it's really great because it identifies what these habits are that to make these atomic habits, which are little minuscule habits that will make a huge difference in your life. And as I mentioned in chapter 1, and this was a couple of days ago on Facebook Live, if you just improve by 1% per day, that's like 1% in your per day of whatever habit it is you're trying to create, a positive habit, you will improve by 37% for the year, which is incredible. Now, the one thing I did not mention in my video is if you actually went the opposite route and you declined by 1% per day. Let's just say you were really fanatical about exercising, and you're a great athlete, and you started going the opposite direction, and you declined by 1% per day, you could literally within 1 year go back down to 0. Now, obviously, there is such a thing as cellular, there's muscle memory, cellular memory. Like if you've been an athlete, you can always come back, but it's just going to take a lot longer if you've taken a year off. But don't let that concern you too much. It's mainly when you really form bad habits. But, I totally believe if, you're kicking a bad habit, just these little things that you can do, and what a lot of people make the mistake of, and that's what they're talking about in the 2nd chapter, they first put the goal as, I'm going to, my goal is I want to be this certain size, by this date. And we've all been taught that before, that's actually they say that's the last thing you should do. There's identity. The identity is the most important thing. So there's if you can picture yourself as who is the person I want to be, that's the most impactful. So instead of saying I want to be this size, you actually on a daily basis you visualize who would you be, being that size, whatever it is, or you want to be a great reader, you want to be an avid reader, or you want to be an amazing prospector, you want to be selling so many homes per month. Well, what does that person, not how many homes does that mean to you, but who does that look like for you? Are you dressed up? Are you, how are you presenting yourself? Are you happy? And then on a daily basis, like a good exercise would be, for instance, if I'm going back to the analogy of the weight loss. So throughout the day, you ask yourself, and I don't really believe in diets. I don't think diets work. I believe in, it's a way of life, healthy eating. But let's just say, you really want to lose a certain amount of weight because of a high school reunion coming up. And so you picture yourself as that person, going to the high school reunion. But more importantly, throughout the day, throughout each and every day, you ask yourself, okay, so if I am that identity, that person, or maybe you admire someone who is that certain size, what would that person be doing today? What kind of choices would they be making right now? Would they be making the choice of, eating this cake? Or would they be making a choice of, a smarter decision, and maybe eating a meal, and then if they still want that cake, because I still think you should have your cake still, you shouldn't, anytime you start depriving yourself, you're going to feel like you're dieting, and then it's going to backfire. That's my personal belief. So maybe you say, okay, I'm going to have that meal, and then I'm going to rate my satiety, I'm on a scale of 1 to 10. I feel kind of full. I'm like a 7 or 8. So all I need is a couple bites of that cake, so throughout the day, you start gauging yourself, but you're putting yourself in the identity of who you want to become. So, I just wrote down a couple of things. It's, changing your identity is at the very deepest level. Once you get to that point, you are making huge changes in your life. But a lot of people, they start with they want to just put the goal out, like, I am going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be a millionaire by 2020 or whatever. And they write that out over and over and over. And, and I'm also a believer that in positive, energy and all that. I personally believe my energy comes from God, but you know what? It's whatever your beliefs are. I think it's awesome. Whatever comes back, whatever you put out comes back to you, I feel. So, but if you actually have a system and you have processes, that's the second part of this. So the processes are, okay, you want to look great for that high school reunion, of course. So you put together an action plan. So your processes are like implementing a routine, like going to the gym at a certain time. If that is so important, not just saying, oh, I'm going to go to the gym and everything, but maybe setting yourself, okay, on these days I go to the gym, and and they say, like in this book, like there was famous dancer, Talia Schneider or something like that. I don't know. You probably know who I'm talking about. But she would dance. She's a famous dancer. She would dance for like a couple hours every day. And what she said, boy, the sun is kind of weird in my phone right now. She would say that the most important thing for her to do, she lived in New York, would be just to get in her clothes, and then to hail a taxi. And then once she got in the taxi, her job was done, because she knew that taxi, all she had to tell the taxi driver was the area, the taxi, or the dance studio that he had to go to. And once he started driving, her job was done, because when she showed up, she knew she was going to do her dancing. So a lot of our, the challenges that we have is just getting up and doing the item. So that's one other thing they mention in this book is do things in like 2-minute increments. I know that sounds kind of weird, but a lot of times you don't want to get off your couch, like if you're watching a really great TV show or whatever, but you're going to be stuck on that couch watching TV, especially if you're on a Netflix binge. So you just say, okay, for 2 minutes, I'm going to go do something, and it's like a project or whatever. And then a lot of times that 2 minutes falls into 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And, I'm going off a lot of other books and stuff, but there's some other books that say, hey, if you can do anything on your to-do list and it's only going to take you 2 minutes, there's no point of even writing it down. Just do it, just get it done. And I also believe in that as well. But there's like little tricks that I do because sometimes I do want to watch some TV, I don't really watch a lot of TV. I actually stopped my cable subscription, but I do have Hulu and stuff. So, but I like to time myself, and so if I watch something, I'll stop it, and then I'll put a timer on, and then during that time I'll do maybe, I even have weights. It sounds so crazy, but I'll have some weights in my master bathroom and some weights in my kitchen just to remind me to do a little weightlifting, because I'm really good about running. Well, sometimes I could slip a little bit. I did not do 2 days of running this week, but at least those weights remind me to do some weightlifting, or it reminds me to do 2 minutes of planks or something like that. And that's what they talk about in this book as well, is to have reminders, because, or if you have triggers, that are bad for you, like you're trying to get rid of a bad habit, then remove them from your house. That is so critical. Remove really negative things. If your trigger is sugary food, and you're gaining weight, take out everything from your cupboards. Okay. Many people make the mistake of starting out with what they want to achieve, and that's what I already mentioned, which are outcome-based habits. It's better to focus on identity-based habits, who we wish to become, versus someone who says, okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, you're trying to quit smoking. Okay, there's two people. One, they're both trying to quit smoking, and they're both at bars. And they're in their smoking area. Both of them are in the smoking area. And, someone comes up to, their friends come up to them and say, hey, do you want a cigarette? And the one friend says, no, I'm a non-smoker now. So that's his identity. He's changing his identity. And he's more likely, or she is more likely, to be successful than the one who says, no, I'm trying to quit. Or, because that's kind of like an excuse. So if they don't quit, it's okay because they tried. And you never want to use the word try. I have learned, I've been saying that to my team for 20 something years. And I learned that from a great coach named Bob Corcoran. And he always said, don't say try. Never say try. You either do it or you don't. So true. So anyway, but yeah, so I am a healthy person, I am, whenever you're thinking about, the worst thing you can do is to berate yourself. And, other things I've learned, not from this book, but I'll give you an example. We have 60,000 thoughts that go through our brains every day. It's really crazy when you think about that. And, and it's funny. It's I remember this because of just all these books I read. And 80% of our thoughts are negative, 80%. And 95% of those 60,000 thoughts are repetitive. So we're repeating the same thoughts 95% of the time. So we're just going over them and over them and over them and over them, and, that's why it's so important if we could just change, from the negativity in our minds. And a lot of times it starts with, how we talk. Not that we talk to ourselves all the time, but we talk internally to ourselves, and also how we talk to others about ourselves. So if someone says, gosh, you look really pretty, and I used to always say, well, and sometimes I do say, oh, thank you, but it's I've had this forever. No, it's better to say, thank you so much. Thank you so much, instead of saying, oh, well, but I really had I'm having a bad hair day. Don't make excuses. Just embrace it and say thank you, because it's going to do more for you in the long run than, just your insecurity, or you just feel like you should, I don't know, be humble or something. Because I was always that way, and I had to learn to take it in and appreciate it when someone complimented me. It was very important. So, okay, I'm going to snap on it real fast. Improvements are only temporary until they become part of who you are. Oh, I have to touch my screen because it's trying to go into someone's Wi-Fi. I don't know why. And then there was also an example in chapter 2 of a guy who always chewed his nails. Like, there are negative identities, which, people will try to put labels on you, or you have put labels on yourself, and those can be really hard to break. And I've done it myself, and because I caught myself when I was reading this chapter or listening to it, because I've always said, oh gosh, I'm so bad with names. Okay, that's changing. I am really good with names, and I'm, so now when I meet someone, I'm gonna repeat their names a couple times, and maybe put it in my iPhone immediately, so that's not a part of my identity anymore. And there was an example in this book of a guy who always had his nails always looked terrible, and he said, oh, my nails are always bad. He was always out in the field, and someone treated him to a manicure, and his nails looked so good, and even the manicure said, God, you have really good hands. So he felt very proud of his hands and his nails. And then all of a sudden he used to bite his nails. That was his problem. He had a bad habit of biting his fingernails. Okay. And so as soon as he got that compliment, it became a part of his identity. Like, oh, I have really good hands, and I'm going to start keeping up with my nails. And he stopped biting his fingernails. So it was just an example, and then so I already covered most of everything. And then, so the most important thing is the two-step process for changing your identity is to decide who you want to be, and then prove it to yourself with small wins. So just take small little wins, and think of every time you win, like every time you do a good habit. I mean, and I don't like to say good or bad or anything, but a positive habit. And it could be just, you were kind to yourself, you journaled, and maybe you don't have to journal a whole page. You just journaled 3 sentences. That's a win. Give yourself a pat on the back every time you do something that's positive, because think of that as a vote. Like every time you do something that's positive, it's like a vote. And in that vote, gets you closer to winning that election. And that election is establishing that positive identity. So don't be paranoid if you do a couple negative things every now and then, because, if you have more positive things that, are outstacking the negative things, you're still going to win the election. That's the example they gave in chapter 2. So I hope that makes sense. And ask yourself, what would a healthy person do? I already mentioned that. And there's also what's called a feedback loop. Your habits shape your identity, and your identity shape your habits. So it's like an ongoing loop over and over and over. And my last final thought for you is the most important question. And please think about this tonight. And maybe ask your spouse this, or your significant other, or your child, is who do you want to be? because no matter how old you are, how young you are, how, big you are, whatever it is, you can change your life. So, into being whoever you want to be.